Welcome to the WIPS podcast, inspiring and empowering women to take the stage and up their game in the public speaking arena. My name is Chantal Bossé from Shabas, Leaders for Your Presentation, Public Speaking, and AV Needs. Enjoy the show. Hello, everyone. My guest today is Anna Jones. She's from London, United Kingdom. Welcome, Anna.
Thank you very much.
I'm happy to have you with me today. And let's start off right away. Tell the listeners what you do. What's your job finally in the everyday work?
So I work for a presentation consultancy. So I spend a lot of time helping people craft more persuasive messages, build more compelling slides, and ultimately deliver more effective presentations.
And that's always an interesting job because I do the same thing as you do. So we are truly passionate about our jobs. But you also do public speaking.
I do, yes. So I spend a lot of time both in work with clients, but also outside of work, talking to different groups of people. So in work, it looks like delivering training for clients or presenting to clients different content that we've prepared for them. And outside of work, it tends to be about topics that I'm passionate about. So I work with a credit union and I've done quite a few talks on that and some different things like that.
Oh, that's interesting. And how was your first experience as a public speaker?
Do you know, I'm not actually sure I can remember my first proper experience. There's, I kind of have memories at university of being involved in different clubs and speaking and doing different things there. But there isn't a moment that I look back and remember really specifically a particular event. I think my one of the first trainings that I delivered with the organization that I'm with now was probably, it was to a room of about 50 people, and they had come to us as presentation experts. And I was still very new with this organization, and I was still learning a lot. And so I think my memory is just feeling very uncertain and feeling very like, oh, do I really know enough to be telling all these people about presentations? So that's probably, my.
At least it doesn't seem that it was traumatizing, because that's usually when we have very clear memories. But if uncertain feelings, I guess we all get them, especially when we're starting off. Unsure that, as you say, we're unsure we're fit or we know enough to be sharing the knowledge with people.
Yeah, definitely. It was funny because when I first started doing presentation work, my boss actually told me a story about how he had been presenting and had just fallen off the back of the stage.
Oh, no.
And I kind of thought after that, then, it's fine. There's probably nothing that I'm going to do that will be, that will top that. So that definitely helped ease me in.
True, because when you get such a bad experience, then you figure, oh my gosh, how am I going to recover from that? But yourself, did you have any challenging experience while you were training or doing public speaking?
I think the most challenging experience that I can remember recently, in the past kind of 5-7 years, would be, there've been a few different times where I've gone in to do training, and we tend to do training for sales teams. And I've gone in to do training, and there's a room of kind of 10 to 15 men, to be direct. They tend to be white men, and they tend to be older.
Okay.
You kind of are walking into this room of salespeople, all of whom are sitting there thinking, I already know how to do presentations. I don't know what she's going to tell me that is, anything for me to learn. And then you have that weird gender thing, that kind of
Yeah.
and you're kind of standing in front of this group of people who all think they know better than you.
And you can
And
feel it.
yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And I remember particularly when I first started attending client meetings and then going on to do training and different things like that. I remember because quite often we'll be sitting down with the most senior people in an organization. So we're with their chief marketing person, their CEO, the people who are making the kind of big strategic decisions about messaging, and it's always a room full of men. And it's this
Okay.
kind of really interesting dynamic, whether it's a messaging session like that or whether it's a training environment. And that it's just funny because I didn't think, when I first came into the workplace, I thought, oh, the world where gender matters is past. Like that's previous generations. We're now in this new world where being a woman in the workplace is all right. And there isn't this kind of, weird gendered stuff. But I definitely, and my most challenging rooms are ones that are a room full of men who all think they know best. And it's that kind of um, almost breaking down their assumptions and having that extra hurdle to overcome that I know because I've seen my male colleagues go in and do it. And I know they don't have the same hurdle to overcome.
Okay. And how did you manage that? How did you get rid of that little feeling you had, or how were you able to probably break down the barrier that invisible barrier that they were putting up in front of you?
It's a great question. I think to a certain extent, some of it is having good stuff to say. So, what it is that you're talking about um, does really make them sit back and think, oh, maybe, just possibly, I have something to learn as well. And so I think there's whether, regardless of any kind of gender dynamics, I think you've got to have something good to say. And I think then so it's really funny. This is in that kind of environment, because what that training usually looks like is I go in and I do kind of a morning where I'm standing up and presenting. And then in the afternoon, I'm helping them learn to stand up and present. And I find that overcoming that hurdle in the morning, demonstrating value, not putting up with anybody else trying to take control of the room, letting, if someone's being particularly pushy or that kind of thing, I am fairly direct. Being American helps in a British environment, and I'm fairly direct and just tell them to sit down and be quiet. But then in the afternoon, actually, the fact that I'm a woman and I'm helping them learn to present is a benefit, because there isn't, I don't know, I think maybe I'm able to challenge them maybe on the way they're presenting, or I'm able to say things and it doesn't come across as combative in any way. And
Okay.
I don't know if that's a gender thing. It could be a personality thing. I have no idea. But I just, we've got different clients who have responded well to coaching that I've gone in and done, but not a lot of my male colleagues. And I know they do a great job. I know it's not
That's right.
the quality of what they're doing. So it's just an interesting dynamic. But all that's quite small room presenting. I think all that's, looking at 10, 15 people for the most part. And I think in the bigger environments where I've presented, so I've hosted a few politics panels, getting politicians to be quiet is always very hard. Just stick to their time limits.
Yeah, you're more time police than
Yeah.
you don't have the choice. That's true.
Mm-hmm.
But that's really interesting because, as you mentioned, we wouldn't think we would have that gender thing now, and it's still there. But you're still proof that if we do it, if we manage it in a proper way, then they probably start to realize, well, I do have a few things to learn. And then afterwards, for the coaching part, it's also interesting maybe there is a little something. Maybe it's not as competitive being a woman, giving them coaching for how they deliver instead of
Mm.
having a man. It probably depends on the personality of the people in the room, I guess. But
Yeah, certainly.
yeah, but it's still really interesting because it does mean that one of the first things that we have to do is make sure we prove the value, like you say,
Mm.
prove that you have value to give to those people. You have really interesting stuff you can share with them
Hmm.
that might bring down the barriers, even though sometimes they're more invisible barriers, but we still feel them.
Yeah, 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 absolutely. Absolutely.
So, besides that, I'm sure you probably have also some very great memories. Do you have maybe one in particular that you remember that you took
Mm.
the stage and it was a perfect moment or something very memorable?
I spoke at it's an organization called Capital Mass, which is a charity that's connected to the Church of England and some different um, uh, yeah, it's a charity connected to the Church of England, and they asked me to speak because I'm part of the board of directors for a credit union, and they asked me to speak on the impact that credit unions can have and why people should engage with credit unions. And that was it was really nice to one be talking about something that really excites me. That's kind of not my day job, which is, I'm passionate about in its own way, but something that's kind of outside of work and where where a lot of, I think, that creative energy is really focused, I guess. So and it's something I've been very actively involved with this credit union and very hands on for several years. So I've been kind of deeply immersed in the day to day making things happen on the ground. And then to be able to kind of take a step back and look at, pull together a talk that was kind of seaming together what it is that I'm passionate about, why that matters for the people, what it, the why credit unions are a powerful alternative to our current financial infrastructure, and why people should be patient with some of the inefficiencies, should I say, that a lot of credit unions have. And it was really, that's probably one of my best memories, partly because the audience was very warm and lovely. There was a few of my friends who came, uh, some of whom are not religious at all, and they just came to hear me speak. And the feedback from that talk, and having there was someone from the radio there at the event, so she asked to do a little interview afterwards, and then someone from one of the organizations came up as well afterwards, and it felt like it was what I had said had really touched a nerve and had really caused people to think. And I think there's nothing better, right? There's nothing
Oh,
better than,
absolutely.
yeah, than knowing that what you've said has in some way caused someone to think about what they're doing, particularly when it's about something that's how we can change the world for the good.
Oh, I totally agree. I usually call it when I reach a point that I realize that I've transformed how people think or how they
Mm.
will react. That's probably the highest win we can have when we're in front of a room, whether it's a small group or a large group. You're right. We're passionate about transmitting something, but having such an impact, that is really rewarding. Good for
Mm.
you. That really must have been a great event to at least give your talk and then get all that precious feedback.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. It was very positive and very inspiring because there was a lot of other speakers there who were talking about similar issues. So it was both inspiring and a pleasure to be a part of.
Oh, great. And tell me, how do you prepare for a speech or a presentation?
I spend a lot of time walking around my office or my bedroom or some room without other people in it and talking out loud.
Oh, that's a
uh,
great one.
I try very hard to, write down an outline. I tend to actually write out, if it depends if I'm doing a presentation with visuals or if I'm just delivering a speech that doesn't have any kind of visuals with it.
Okay.
Because if I'm delivering a speech, then I will write out that speech, not necessarily word for word, but pretty close, and then just practice it over and over and over until I can have it in front of me but not have to read it to
Yeah.
say it. Particularly if it's a speech that's longer than 2 or 3 minutes. If it's a kind of 10-minute, 15-minute talk, I think that's a little bit more challenging to stay on track when you're up in front of the bright lights. But if it's a presentation with visuals where I can bring or the slides are part of the storytelling, then I don't put together a script actually, because I think that's really it's very hard to, because then you feel like you have to follow that script, and as soon as you get off track, you're completely
Yes.
lost. So in if I have visuals, then I plug in my clicker into my computer, again walking around my office, because I don't know, find it easier to stand up and walk around and talk than to sit and look at my computer and talk. And I'll click through every single animation, every single build, every single visual, and I'll go through, what's the punchline of this? What's the purpose of this visual? What's the how is it the hooks that my story hangs on?
Oh, yeah.
And then we'll just practice it over and over and over, adding more and more detail and story to it as I go. So I have the skeleton, and then I build on that and build on that until I'm really confident with the being able to talk to what's happening on the slide, the story the slide is telling, being able to talk to that in different ways, so that no matter where I'm at when I'm presenting this, or no matter what questions the audience ask, or no matter where things are, I won't get lost or thrown off track, because I really understand the content and the big arc of what's being communicated.
That's great. And it also proves one thing that I repeat all the time to my clients. It takes time. If people think they're going to whip up a great presentation, a great speech at the last minute, it just doesn't happen.
Yeah.
Because it does take time. And I like you say, you need to walk around. It's probably a good tip for people if they feel comfortable, or if they're putting themselves a little bit in the same situation than being on the stage. Maybe that's why it works so well for you, because you're standing and probably pacing a little bit like you would be on the stage, and it just does the trick to help you practice. That's great.
Mm-hmm.
And finally, Anna, we're already to my last question. I would like to know if you had one tip that you would to want to share to empower women to take the stage more confidently. What would it be?
And one tip. So I've been thinking about this, and the one I was thinking. I mean, I think there's lots of tips that I would say are completely gender neutral, right? Things that would help
Yes.
absolutely anyone. But I was thinking specifically about that women question and what that looks like, and I kept coming back to it in my mind. When I first started with Bright Carbon, my boss, I remember we kind of had a real startup vibe at the time, because there was so few of us, and we were away in a big house somewhere in the English countryside, because we'd go away together and meet up and talk about all kinds of things. And so we were in the kitchen making sticky toffee pudding. So she was making it and I was watching, and I asked him, I said, do you think, because we'd earlier had a discussion, and I said, oh, Joe, do you think I was too aggressive in that conversation? And it was really interesting. He just looked at me and he said, Anna, if you were a man, you would never ask that. Because
Oh,
men, he said, you weren't aggressive at all. You were direct and assertive, and that's fine. And it has stuck with me from, over the years. And that kind of, what is it in my head that made me think that I was somehow aggressive? Like, what is it, or the different, what is it in it that makes me think, oh, maybe I'm being too much of this, or I'm being too that, or I'm being, oh, maybe I need to take a step back, or maybe I need to maybe not say so much, or I'm quite a confident person. Like, I don't, but it's just really struck me, and it's really shaped how I think about, when I go in to do presentations, when I go in to do any kind of public speaking. I always have that thought in the back of my head of that moment where I think, oh, am I to this? I always have in the back of my head that conversation where my boss just really challenged me to not be, I guess, bound by those thought patterns that for whatever reason, I think a lot of women probably share.
Oh, that's really interesting. Stop overthinking if what we're doing or not doing is right, wrong, whatever. That's really powerful because, as you mentioned, someone telling you, well, if you would have been a man, you probably wouldn't have asked that question to start with.
Yeah.
So it is powerful. Probably just owning, being assertive, being direct, and not overthinking. Would that be thought as either not appropriate for the crowd? If we are ourselves, just being our authentic selves, probably might be doing the trick. But that's really, really important. I really like that.
It was just such a influential moment for me, I think, because I was coming into the workplace thinking that we'd solved the gender problem. I was, coming in very confident and not, I grew up in a home, in an environment where my family was very empowering. There was no despite the fact I grew up in the American South where women are encouraged to not take leadership over men. My family wasn't like that at all. So I just came into it feeling like I didn't have that baggage that, I'd kind of heard about, and I'd certainly experienced a lot growing up with women around me. And I thought, no, it's fine. I've got this figured out. And just to have him challenge me on that made me think, oh, wow, I don't have this figured out. And actually, there's probably a hell of a lot of thought patterns that I have going on, and a lot of things that I don't even realize I'm underselling myself, or I don't even realize that I'm not, that I'm doubting myself, or I'm questioning myself, that if I was a man, I probably wouldn't do.
And you're right. And we're probably doing it so much more than we think at times. I agree with you. It's so easy to have that little small talk in our head, wondering and rethinking and doubting. So the bottom line is maybe stop overthinking and just be ourselves. That's really powerful. Anna, that was a wonderful discussion we had. I really love what you shared with our listeners, and I'm sure they'll find a lot of value in it. Also, they'll be able to reach out for you, connect with you, because we'll put 2 links where they can learn a little bit more. And they'll be able, so please do connect with Anna. Just reach out, see how she's doing, see what she's doing also.
Yeah, absolutely.
And again, thank you very much for being with us.
Oh, no problem. It's been my pleasure.
We hope you enjoyed the show. Please tell us what you think by commenting, and even share with your own networks to inspire and empower others to do public speaking.